What's the most vile, disgusting thing you've seen someone do in public? When I was a kid. 13-14 probably. Me and my group of friends, I was good mates with 3. But got on with the other few. We're out in the woods and rivers just messing around. And there was a mother duck with a bunch of her cute little fluffy ducklings. They were cute. Just minding their own business. Then all of a sudden a rock hits the duck right in the neck, instantly crippling it. It started flapping around. Blood pumping out of its neck, and the ducklings were all panicking, and I was just devastated. Turned around and 3 of them, the other lads, were in hysterical laughter over it. One of them had thrown the rock full force at the duck. As a laugh. I genuinely didn't know what to do. The ducklings has all scattered and the duck just floated dead in the water. I just left. Went home, and in a decade I've never been able to get it out of my head. Edit. Thanks for all the support. I legit didn't think this would blow up, to be honest. But it is nice to see how many people actually care about animals and were moved by my story. This was 10 years ago roughly, and I don't speak to anyone from those days. Thanks again. Did some work at a train station a while ago. One morning the station master called me into the office, where they were reviewing the CCTV footage from the night before. Saw a woman walk up to the drinking fountain, hitch up her dress, straddle the fountain, and proceed to wash her vag right there in the fountain while the other commuters watched on. Haven't touched a public fountain since. From afar I saw a man put something in another guy's drink while he was talking to his friends. I didn't think he knew the guy, so I was appalled that I actually saw that. I walked up to the guy with the drink and told him and the bartender. The preparator vanished. But it has made me paranoid now about going out. When I was a little kid, I saw a man throw his dog over the guardrail into a rushing river. No one stopped him, and it has stuck with me forever. Was riding with a co-worker after eating lunch around 2 p.m. We drove around the side of another restaurant where we notice a guy in a chef's jacket standing outside his car, kind of blocking himself with the door. I suppose we startled him, and he spun around, exposing his downed pants and boner. We saw a kitchen employee jacking off in the parking lot of his restaurant. I'm on the rowing team and my boat is rowing under the bridge as usual when these kids on the bridge waited for the right moment that we would pass under and just pissed all over us. Our coxswain sort of saw it coming since the kids were aligning themselves with our boat, but just fully realized when they started unzipping. By then it was too late to shift course. Our backs face the bridge as we row through, so we had no idea what was going on at first. But man, their piss smelled awful, and we just had to continue our 90-minute practice in urine-soaked clothes. Duck those kids. Edit. Just to clarify to everyone. Jumping in the Christina River is the worst thing you could do. It is just so goddamn polluted, we would have smelled worse if we did. I was in a reception area of my local council office waiting to see someone when a young couple with their toddler walked in. The man asked to see someone and they sat down. The lady on reception must have glanced at the man because he got up, walked to her, and asked what she was looking at. She ignored him. He then told her if she did it again she would receive a mouthful of spit in her face. Security was called and he was asked to leave. After some exchanged words, the man went towards the door. As he walked out he shouted, "Itch. Hither." And to my shock his partner stood up and walked out behind him. The most vile human acting in the most disgusting way. Homeless dude in LA gets up from his perch. Walks over to put his back against an ice marble wall. Slides down to a sitting position and just sheets down the wall. Gets up like nothing happened and goes back to his spot. I'm not sure which thing I was most bothered by. The fact that he did that, or the fact that nobody gave a duck that it was happening. I lived in San Francisco for 17 years. I've seen homeless people giving jetic BJS. Cheating on the sidewalk. Shooting up. etc. Saw a guy go up to a flock of pigeons. Somehow managed to grab one. And seemingly break its neck. Old woman on a public train in a wheelchair. Right in the middle of the aisle, she had her pants down to her mid-thighs. Masturbating. Eyes closed. Making noises and everything. finger bash his 150 kilograms MRS on the way to an AFL game in a packed train. People would rather be jammed into the armpit of an overweight sweaty dude than be next to that massive lady moaning. I was almost crushed by the scurry of people noping the duck away from that, so I don't blame them. I saw a drunk guy spits out his Felgium, then afterwards he picked it up and ate it right in front of us. When I was about 12, I went to the city with my family to go to a basketball game. I live in the suburbs, so I am not familiar with city life and what it entails. A bit before the game, my family was just coming out of a restaurant when I saw two old homeless people ducking on a bench. People just walked by like it was nothing, but to me at the time, it was scarring. I once saw a woman drop her cigarette into a puddle of piss, fish it back out and try to light it for a good while with it in her mouth. Then when she finally realized it was too soaked through to light properly, she put it back into her carton. Someone on the bus kept violently coughing up phlegm into a handkerchief, then locked eye contact with me, smiled and proceeded to slowly lick the sheet in the handkerchief without breaking eye contact. Guy on the L in Chicago had his pants around his thighs, no underwear, and was touching himself through his dingy white t-shirt about 18 inches away from this poor woman. She was in a seat shielding herself with her knees up to her chin and her purse against her face. Two heroes took him by the shoulders and pressed him up against the car door until the next stop, where they pushed him out. Edit, spelling. My gross red line story was a druggie had a large open leg wound and was using the image of it to get people to give him money. You could see muscle and bone. Horrifying to see, but you could tell this guy had a bunch of problems, so you just give him $1 so he'll go away. He also pulled out ointment and started rubbing it. Used to take the red line every day for work for like 5 years, and so glad my commute nowadays is a walk. Have seen many crazy scenes on the L trains, but used to see that dude like once a month back in the day. I attended the New Year's celebration on Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. It was amazing in so many ways, and truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Towards the end of the night, as drunkenness was at an all-time high, and available porta potties were at an all-time low, we watched numerous people just squat down and drop a deuce. Some were kind enough to dig a little hole. Other people left it right on top for the world to see. And this wasn't one or two instances. We probably saw a dozen people do this. Walking home was like walking through a minefield. As a side note about how terrible humans are, something like 15 million pounds 315 tons of trash was removed the next day. Edit, I grossly misremembered the amount of trash. I was walking down the street when a man about 10 feet in front of me stepped off the curb, pulled down his shorts, bent over and arched a stream of liquid sheet about a foot out, right onto the busy sidewalk. When you gotta go, you gotta go. But he could have at least sprayed away from people. England vs Wales rugby match while at university. I am Welsh and this was a Welsh university. We were watching in the bar and Wales beat England, so everyone was on a high. I decide to go for a pee and see that one of the urinals has a bucket full of pee underneath it. I mean brimming. I avoid this urinal like a good boy. An England fan then comes in, angry about the loss, sees me wearing a Wales rugby shirt, tells me to F off. Then this asshat grabs the bucket and throws the whole thing at me, drenching me in the piss of about 40 different dudes. Ruined the day. Ruined the win. Very vile. Very disgusting. Edit, who would have thought that me getting tanked by a bucket of piss would be my top rated comment. So I work third shift in a 24H fast food chain and I have a daily visitor I'll call Brian. Brian is 69 and had a stroke 3 years ago, so he doesn't listen or answer very well and generally ignores everyone. Every time he goes outside for a cigarette, he'll come back in and proceed to cough obnoxiously loud with all his might every couple of minutes and completely gross out other guests. Every night. I've grown used to it, but damn, it's brutal. I was having a burger at a insert burger chain here. I'm scanning the room, as one does, and I see this very large man sitting alone at a four-top. He's in a filthy grease-stained t-shirt that struggles to stretch over his mountainous belly, which is covered in slops from his feeding frenzy. And he's packing away a triple like he's been starved of food for weeks. Then I notice the wrappers crumbled and strewn across the table like throwaway tumbleweed. There are, I shit you not, at least 5 wrappers. Then I notice the 3 or 4 empty fry boxes. Then I notice an empty chili bowl which has been tossed on its side, with its remaining juices oozing off the edge of the table, dripping to the ground. This man was clearly eating himself to death. As the man finishes biting his triple, he stumbles to his feet, at which point nearly a half-pound of slop rolls off his stomach and splatters onto the table and floor. He belches unapologetically, and then walks out the door. He left the entire mess there for the poor workers to clean. I finish my meal and pop into an electronics store next door. Needed a new phone charger, and I notice this man again. He's a hard one to miss. He's at the register making a purchase. He's picking at his ass, which his shorts are struggling to keep contained, as the cashier rings up his item. Here's where I lose it. I see what's in his hand. It's a Blu-ray copy of The Last Airbender. I nearly got sick on myself right there. Edit. It was a Blu-ray copy. 1. I used to work in a really bad part of town, and one afternoon driving home from work I saw some random guy, most likely hopped up on Drew Gus, stick his hand down his throat and vomit all over the sidewalk next to our car. 2. During Christmas time some lady straight up changed her baby on the table in the food court of the mall. Didn't wipe it down or anything. Told the custodial crew. They didn't do anything. I worked at Tim Hortons. We had a regular that was clearly mentally disabled. One day he decided to lean rhythmically against the order counter, basically like a standing prone master by shun session. His face revealed that he definitely came. Then he spoke and a chunk of chewed food flew out of his mouth onto the counter. I didn't serve him. I got in trouble from the shift manager. I didn't care. Back in college, I got really high with my roommate one night, and we decided to go out to get drunk stoner food. Since it was late and most places were closed, we resolved to go to Walmart to stock up. While I was standing in front of the freezer, trying to decide what kind of ice cream to get, I noticed a foul smell getting stronger and the sounds of a cart getting closer. I looked to my left, and this hulking, well over both 6 feet 0 and 30 BMI, creature of indeterminate gender came slowly down the aisle, audibly wheezing and pushing a cart literally filled to the brim with every processed food imaginable, staring straight ahead with dead eyes and a gaping mouth. She was drinking from an open carton of half and half, and as it passed, I could see she was wearing what was basically a sweet pink kilt, with towels duct taped around their cankles to sop up visibly oozing diabetes sores. My munchies immediately passed, and I left Walmart without buying anything, for I had seen the dark path it might lead me to. I was at a pretty busy movie theater and I watched a guy coming out of the bathroom with a large soda in one hand and a plate of pretzel bites in the other. He pulls the door open and hip checks it to keep it open. A single pretzel bite falls off the tray onto the highly trafficked men's room floor, like right in that line of sticky footprints that forms in a really busy restroom. Just picked that thing up and popped it right in his mouth. Might as well just lick all the urinals at that point. It was only one little nugget of food. Let it go, man. Let it go. This story is about my aunt, but what she did took place in public, so I think it's relevant to this thread. Throughout my childhood, my paternal grandmother lived with my nuclear family and babysat me every day while my parents worked. When I was 7, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, so my dad took a job that allowed him to work nights so that he would be accessible to me during the day. The incident I'm prefacing took place during summer vacation, and my mother was pregnant, so 24-hour childcare would be required eventually. However, because he needed to get some sleep during the day, he asked my aunt, his sister, to keep an eye on me during the day, which she did inexpensively as she didn't work and she was inclined to help care for my grandmother as well. One day, My aunt needed to drive my grandmother to an appointment. Her appointments were frequent, and I was always brought along, which in and of itself was pretty stressful to 7-year-old me, as my grandmother's situation was not well explained to me and I was often confused and scared. On our way to the appointment, on a public street with witnesses, a black cat crossed the road in front of my aunt. She had plenty of time to stop. I saw the cat up ahead and wasn't even concerned as it was so far away. But instead she deliberately sped up a little, struck the cat, and while cackling yelled, "Gotcha!" My grandmother didn't say anything about it and my parents assumed I misunderstood what had happened. I didn't misunderstand. I didn't look out the window to see if anyone on the street noticed or acted. But that poor cat lost its life and the trauma I was already immersed in became so much more unbearable. I'm in my mid-20s now and I haven't spoken to my aunt in years. She lives a few states away now, which has made avoiding her much easier. I don't ever intend on speaking to her again. Edit. Punctuation. Public toilets of my student dorm. We had one toilet on each floor. Every morning the cleaning lady cleaned the toilet and the bathroom in general. That was the only time of the day I took a sheet. At 6 AM the cleaning ladies arrived. At 7:30 I was sheeting and at 8 I had to be at university. By noon there was sheet on the floor surrounding the toilet. Sheet on the toilet itself. Not in. Often sheet on the walls and once I found sheet on the ducting ceiling. There was often puke from guys that were drunk. And piss was pretty much everywhere. I actually had special flip-flops that I used only when I needed to use the bathroom. Used them for 1 month and replaced with a new pair. The worst part were the weekends when the cleaning ladies weren't coming. Saturday morning was already hell. By Sunday night the toilets in the campus were pretty much unusable. You could find sheet in the showers or the sink. I shit you not. Funny thing is, I never found any of these methodicas taking a dump. I swore to myself that when I do, I would grab his ducking head and wipe the floor of sheet with him. They were like ninjas taking a quick dump and going back into their rooms. In the weekends when I had to sheet I went to McDonald's or kept it in me and waited for Monday morning. 2 girls 1 cup is nothing compared to these memories. While I was in the lifeguard stand at a public pool, I had to watch 2 people ducking in the hot tub. My dudes. We drain it for cleaning once per month. You could have either waited a couple of weeks or gone in there 3 days earlier. When I was a little kid, there was a guy next door to me that was quite a bit older, probably high school, whereas I was around 6-8 years old. I looked up to this guy a lot at the time. I thought he was really cool. One day, his pregnant cat was giving birth in his garage, and we were there watching. I was super excited. I was about to see kittens. Equals D. After the first one was born, my friend picked up the kitten, while the mom cat hissed bloody murder at him. And he just casually said, "Well, we've already got a cat," and he proceeds to put the kitten's neck into the blades of a pair of scissors. I lost my ducking sheet. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm demanding that he put the kitten down immediately. Pleading. Everything. He looks genuinely shocked. Like he doesn't understand my objections. I still remember his face. He wasn't teasing me or trolling. He was legit about to chop the heads off of all the kittens. Eventually, the other neighbors come running over. And when they hear what the guy was about to do, they couldn't believe it either. The guy finally put down the kittens. And when the guy's parents came home, they were appalled. Grounded the guy. And let the mom raise the kittens. And found homes for them. I couldn't talk for about a week. After all that screaming. Never talked to that guy again. He's probably off being a psycho somewhere. But at least he didn't kill the kittens. I worked at a grocery store when I was 19-20. And I was heading out to my car for my break. It was raining pretty heavily. So I was going to sit in my car and read for a bit. As I exited the store, I noticed something long and lumpy laying in the middle of the parking lot. But it was hard to make out through the rain. A couple people went by it, gave it a quick glance and continued running to their car to get out of the rain. I approached it and discovered it was an elderly man who had fallen. Everyone had just looked at him and kept walking. He had a gash on his head and was bleeding. 2. I ran back into the store and hollered at my manager to call an ambulance because someone had fallen and needed help. I rushed back out and sat with him until the ambulance came. After he left and things settled down, I felt so angry and disgusted at those 2 people who just passed him by and left him there. Hurt, scared, and shaking. Alone. I'll never know who they were or what their thought process was to justify leaving him like that. But I'd like to say, WTF? To them.